Hey guys, it's Mrs. Sauceda. I'm here to tell you how to complete your work if you missed either class of September 9th or September 10th, depending on if you're A day or B day. So if you did miss the class, and you're going to want to, of course, go to classwork and find the date that you missed. So if you missed 909, it'll be labeled 909, or 910 if you're in my B class. So you'll click on that Zoom, and on 904 you should have completed the Google slide for the most part, and so on 909 or 910 today, whichever day you miss, you're going to be completing the lab conclusion Google Doc. And so yours will say your name here instead of lab conclusion, but it will be a Google Doc. And if you didn't complete your Google slide yet, there's a video attached here explaining how to complete the Google slide first, because before you can write your own lab conclusion, you need to be able to see some examples of lab conclusions and rate those conclusions. So make sure you do the lab conclusion Google slide and watch that introduction video, instruction video, before you do today's assignment, which is the lab conclusion Google Doc. So you've finished your lab conclusion Google slide, you know what a good conclusion looks like, and you're ready to write your own. So you're going to open up your Google Doc. This will have your name on it. This is your document to edit. Everything you edit on here will be automatically saved. I also have access to your lab conclusion Google Doc, and so I can see as you're working on it, and if you need me to help you or edit anything for you, then I can also do that. So I'll read this to you. This is called Lab Conclusion for Penny Drop Lab. Now, this lab conclusion should contain a description of the purpose of the experiment, a discussion of the findings, like your data, an explanation of your findings, your data, and recommendations for further study. So what other experiments would you like to do? So the first question is restate the overall purpose of the experiment, include independent and dependent variables, and it gives you an example. The purpose of the experiment was to investigate blank. And so what was the purpose of the Penny Lab experiment? Number 2, so what were your major findings? Summarize your data. So you could mention something that surprised you here. I was surprised that we could fit 30 drops of water on a penny. My hypothesis only estimated 5. So kind of explain your data. My average was 26.6. So you're going to summarize your information there, and if you can't remember your data, you can always go to your Google Drive through Launchpad, Google Drive, and then you can type in Penny Drop Lab, and you'll still have access to that Penny Drop Lab sheet with all of your data and information on there. Question 3, was the hypothesis supported by the claim? So you would say, the hypothesis that 5 drops of water could fit on a penny was not supported, or my hypothesis that 20 drops of water could fit on the penny was supported. So you're going to tell me if your hypothesis was correct or not based on your data, and that was actually your warm-up for one of the classes of the previous class. How could this experiment be improved? So what could we do to make this better? It could be something about technique. It could be something about bringing in some more variables. Maybe instead of just using a penny, we can do a penny and a dime and compare. So how can we make this experiment better for you? How can we make it better for collecting data and to make our data more accurate? So maybe making sure we drop our water droplets at a certain height each time, the same size water droplets. So you give me what you think could improve this experiment. And says not acceptable. It gives you an example of what you shouldn't write. So don't write that it was that we made sloppy, careless measurements or anything like that. I need specific ways to improve it, not just things that were wrong. And then the last question, number 5, what could be studied next after this experiment? What new experiment could continue the study of this topic? So we were trying to see how much water a penny could hold. So you could think of another experiments, maybe using different types of coins, different types of liquids. Maybe let's see, do all liquids act the same as water? So maybe we could use a different type of liquid or a different type of coin. So you would come up with just a short little experiment that you would like to build off of this Penny Lab Drop Lab. This next part here, is the rubric. So these are the 5 things you want to have in your lab report. The purpose should be restated. So the purpose of this lab was to see how many drops of water fit on a penny, right? Talk about your data. Talk about your hypothesis. How can we make the lab better? How could we extend the lab and make a new experiment? So those are the 5 things you need to have, and those are the 5 questions. Now, I want you to notice that a lab conclusion should be in paragraph form, and this is from the lesson previous to today's lesson. So this gives you 2 examples of conclusions. I want you to notice that they're in paragraph format. You can't tell that they're answering questions. It just looks like paragraph format, and that's how yours is going to look when you're done. So you're not going to go here and erase this and then write your answer there. This is just a guide, like an outline of the questions. Your job is to go all the way to the bottom, and it says your turn, write your lab conclusion on the next page. And so you can just hit space a couple times so you get on a new page, and make sure you reduce your font. And the first question was asking, what is the purpose of this assignment?
Please pardon this interruption. Good morning, Hawk family.
So question number 1 said, what is the purpose of the experiment and what was the independent and dependent variable? And so I'm giving you the answer for number 1. I want you to notice there's no number 1 here. It's just in paragraph format. The purpose of the experiment was to investigate how many drops of water can fit on a penny. The independent variable was a penny, and the dependent variable was the amount of water drops. And so that would be the answer for question 1. But the way I have it written down, it's not a number 1 in front of it. I'm not going to skip a space and go to number 2. I'm just going to continue writing in paragraph form so that when you're done, it looks like a complete lab report. So no number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't need to number your questions. Answer them in paragraph format. You should have between 2 and 3 paragraphs when you're done with this. I made my text really big so you could see it, but of course you want your text to be at a reasonable size, so you could do like 12 Times New Roman for the font. It makes it look a little bit neater. And so that's question 1, and then you would go back up to question 2. What were my major findings? Summarize your data. So next you would just start typing right here and talk about your data. So you're going to go through all 5 questions, and when you're done, you're going to go up to your rubric, and this is after you finish all 5 questions and you've read your conclusion. You go to the rubric and just check yourself off. I did this, okay? I did this. I did this. So make sure you do all 5 of these things. Make sure you are grading yourself. Once you're done using this rubric, I'd like you to exit out of the Word doc. And if you go back to your Google slide here, there's another space for you to rate yourself on the very last slide. So this is after you've already completed your conclusion and you've read over it and you've used the rubric on that Word doc. Now you go over here for your feedback grid. So did your conclusion summarize your findings? If it did, then you can put the X. Did you reflect on something surprising? If you did, you put an X. If not, leave it blank. Did you learn anything from this lesson? Did you mention a lesson you learned? If you did, put an X. If not, leave it blank. If you talk about designing a follow-up experiment. If you did, you could mark it with an X. If not, then just leave it blank. And if you're not really sure what it means, then you can always just leave a question mark, and that just lets me know that you're confused about that trait. If you have any questions, let me know. Just remember, of course, when you're done to go back here to view the assignment and then turn it in. Everything will already be attached.